Welcome back to another episode of Data Delicacies, where we bring the best and brightest in the industry to talk all things hospitality, all things tech, and how data is playing such an integral part in a lot of decisions being made, and how we live our daily lives, and of course, how the industry is changing. Today's topic is a really, really cool one. Either you as a listener yourself or know someone that has dietary restrictions today, going to restaurants becomes now tougher and tougher for some of these people because the optionality with their menus, they have to do a little bit of research and digging with, either on the menu themselves or with the staff to find out what they can eat, what they can't eat, make sure there's no cross-contamination. And then when you take that into the digital space, can become even more challenging. So today we have a very, very cool guest. We have the co-founder and CRO of Foodini, Erica Anderman. Erica, thanks for joining.
Yeah, definitely excited to be here.
Yeah, so thanks. So we've had a couple of really cool conversations in the last few weeks, but I'm glad you were able to jump on, and I think this is super timely because we all know someone or either ourselves have some sort of dietary restriction. It's becoming more and more prevalent these days, and really the theme of what we're trying to talk about here is how can data help these folks have a more inclusive experience at restaurants, whether it's in person, digital, what that looks like. So I know that's something that's very dear to your heart. So why don't we talk about, why you decided to tackle this and what were the needs that you were seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the funniest part or most ironic of it, I don't actually have any allergies or dietary needs. My co-founders do. But as you said in the beginning, the important piece is if it's not you, it's someone close to you, right? It's at least 1 in every 3 people. If you add in just preferences, it's almost half the population at this point that has a reason of wanting to know what's in their food. And so for me, it really kind of stemmed from I've been in the restaurant tech space for a very long time. I got my start back straight out of college, a company called Campus Food, which was kind of the first online ordering to come to college campuses. And then I joined Single Platform when it first started, which we kind of built the original plumbing for menu data on the internet. So all is to say, I know a lot about menus, and the real challenge is that the current infrastructure does not allow for restaurants and hospitality to easily be able to communicate what ingredients are within that food to consumers. So while the consumer frustration piece is very well known, and anyone that you know who has an allergy or dietary need will absolutely tell you how frustrating the current experience is, on my side, the reason I, really got involved and not that I don't care about people that I do, but the hospitality side, I have a lot of empathy being in the industry for so long for restaurants and operators, because this is not easy because of, the kind of current way our technology works. And so that's why I got involved, is because I really saw an opportunity here to kind of create that ingredient data layer to allow for this to be super easy for the industry.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome. As far as I know, I haven't seen anyone really diving into this space. So I think it's really, really cool what you're doing. And I have, I think we both travel quite a bit for work, and you go to different restaurants, and I think, just being with different people that have this, they I think there's almost this level of validation that they need, or a certain set of questions they need to answer before they can fully dive into a menu, right? Versus, I think I'm in the same boat as you. I can kind of eat everything. I'm pretty lucky, knock on wood. But I don't really have to worry about, hey, what's here, it's here. I can just kind of go carte blanche and order. But now you know how it is. You go to some of these conferences, there's a bunch of people at a table. I always have to ask now, like, hey, what should we not order here? And you have to be very like particular of that. So, you know, why do you think that no one really dove into this until now? Or do you think it's just been a lack of technology that has helped and data to fuel this to now be able to surface this up to consumers?
Yeah, well, I think it's a few things. I think there's quite honestly more of awareness and growth, right, in terms of the number of allergies and dietary needs. If you look at the data, younger generations more than ever, the prevalence, it's the increase in the prevalence as well as the complexity. So kids more than the older generations have more allergies, and there's a lot we can go into the why in that, but we'll save that for another day. But as far as for within the hospitality industry, I think they've seen the major trends, right? You've seen vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free even in the recent years has become more popular. But what has happened within, I'd say probably just within the last 5 years, is now they've seen a prevalence more and more. That's why they're right now fielding those questions manually. The staff is, whether it's a sit down restaurant and it's the wait staff going to the table, it's very common now for the wait staff to say, but right up from the start, do you have any allergies and dietary restrictions?
Yeah.
In the US, it's not because it's legally required for them to do that. It's because at least half their tables do, to a point where they need to ask. And on the menu side, the challenge is it starts to get real complicated. If you now have V, VG, GF, it starts to be, does it contain those things? Does it not contain those things? And
Right.
now the icons don't really serve it. And so it's gotten to a place where, the bad is it's not being managed well today. But the good is I think we have a really good solution here to be able to really just make it easier for operators to essentially give this information in the consumer's hands. And I guess we didn't really get into kind of how it works, but
Yeah, well, that was gonna be. I mean, it's a great
yeah.
segue into let's talk about Foodini, right? This is what you're trying to solve. So give the listeners a sense, because I'm again, like you said, based on what some of the numbers you dropped, 1 to 2 people listening are probably like, hey, this is super interesting. So talk to the folks listening about Foodini and how you're trying to solve this challenge and make it easier for both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't actually give a little background that might be helpful too to kind of
Yeah.
how the company got started. So my co-founder originally, Dylan, first started the company when he was living in Australia. He's Irish, started it in Australia. It's super complicated if you meet us in person. But what it also shows is they know no geographic bounds, right? The allergies are
Yes.
throughout the world.
Yes.
So to throw some more stats at you, US, 173 million Americans, but worldwide, 2.6 billion people. So this is not a small market. And that's dietary needs, not just allergens. But he really started the business from a personal standpoint. He's a celiac. It really grew up in Ireland. Didn't know what it was at the time. Was one of the first people trying to understand why he was getting sick all the time. Diagnosed when he was 10. And he's your typical guy, right? So some people, like, especially we're based here in LA, some people will say to us, like, is this problem that bad outside of LA and New York, where people are, choosing to avoid
Yeah.
dairy and gluten?
Yeah.
But it's not the case for him. It's really, he wanted to know where he could go to get a sandwich, a burger. In fact, and that's where the inclusive word really comes in, which is, he just was sick of not knowing where he could go.
Yeah.
And to your example before, especially when you're traveling, people are passing around food or at a buffet. You kind of forget about these people who have an allergy or dietary need. They are sitting there hungry. And I've now seen that enough with him. So he started the app really for people like himself to be able to figure out where to go. And then once he quickly realized is the consumer demand extremely strong. But on the restaurant side, in order to help them with this information, you have to be able to get this data from restaurants. And that's where you start to see that this isn't something that's easily available. And that's when I first came on. I first joined as an advisor where I, again, been in the menu world for a long time. And so I tried to help him figure out, it depends who you're talking to. Mid-market and enterprise typically do have documented out. Right now, it's usually within PDFs, these allergen matrices, or within inventory management systems where they have ingredient level. It's just not actually tagged and structured in a way that can be communicated to the consumer.
Yeah.
And so that's where we saw the opportunity to really partner with restaurants and hospitality venues to be able to help them to take this information wherever it exists. If it does not exist, we use AI. And so we've trained LLMs on recipe level data where we have, and we get better each time, but the more data we provide on here, typical pad thai, for example, typically we know what is within that pad thai. And so we're able to tag these dishes such that we can give what we call a screened menu, which is with pretty good confidence. This is what's in that dish, and then what's verified. And that's where we have a dietitian team that actually goes in there, verifies with the culinary team if it's a group, or the chef if it's a small business, of exactly what's in that dish, so that we can verify for those consumers with dietary needs exactly what's in that dish. We structure and tag it. And then we create personalized menus for guests. And so essentially, as a diner, you come in, you say, hey, we cover about 150 plus. So I'm celiac, I'm allergic to nuts, or it could be lifestyle and medical diets. So lifestyle, I'm choosing to eat low carb or avoid red meat. Or on the medical side, we're continuing to add more and more
Yeah.
there as the, again, demand from increases. It's not just a preference, but unfortunately in the US, we're also seeing a lot more chronic disease that's causing people to have needs on the dietary side. And so we're really trying to stay ahead of the curve to be the experts here to help restaurants to understand these growing trends and to be able to accommodate them.
Wow, that's awesome. Kudos to what y'all are doing. It's super cool. And I was gonna ask this, I think you partly answered it, but I mean, there's probably the cross and subsection of all the different allergies and dietary restrictions. You said it's over 150 different ones, and I'm sure there's new ones that are coming up every now and then, and it's super interesting because I would think that before this, I mean, a lot of folks, it's like if they have a dietary restriction in their local town, they'll probably go to like five restaurants because they know, hey, these five restaurants, these dishes, I know I'm good. But it's tough for them to go out and explore the world of restaurants when, again, you go to a bigger city, some of the major cities, or if you're traveling, you're kind of scared. And again, I know one of my coworkers I've worked with at two different companies now, Stacy, she's gluten, she can't have gluten. And a lot of these conferences, to your point, like the snacks or like a sandwich or like a bag of chips, and she literally will just go hungry until dinner time and like feel bad because like in my head, I'm just eating because I'm like, okay, whatever, it's there. But for her, she just doesn't have that option. And if there is a cross contamination, she's like been out for like a day for a bit. So yeah, that's it's unfortunate, but I mean, big shout out. I mean, the platform, the way it's being built out sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, and I think from a kind of taking a step back on the restaurant industry level, the challenges I think, and maybe going a little off topic, but there's so many of the kind of tech providers now that are trying to do a lot all in one for restaurants. And I really think when you do that, you sometimes miss some of these, what we do is kind of a specialized product, which is we really need, you can add a few icons. Every online ordering company or POS can try to capture a few of these, but the challenge is the number are growing, right? 40% of people who have an allergy have more than one. And so now your matrix starts to get difficult because, okay, now I know I can't have this, but now I need to, triage and
Yeah,
look and see if I can have
yeah,
this too. So it's hard, again, I feel for the industry because it's hard to keep up. And so a lot of what we're trying to do is just really help be experts on this and look at the consumer trends across not just, the country, but across multiple countries and be able to help see where the emerging trends are. And again, take this off their plate. So I don't think I actually explained exactly what we do. So on the consumer side, they create their dietary profile, they click save, and then instantly we match the menu to their need. So here's what I can have, here's what I can modify, and specifically what I need to modify, and then what I can't have. And sometimes that's because, let's say you're allergic to nuts, but the nuts are baked in, then you can't. But let's say it's a salad and the nuts come on top, well, that could be modified. And so we give that information to the guest so that they have that before they get to the register, before the wait staff comes to the table. And so really it just helps to create a lot more efficiency for the restaurants.
yeah. And it sounds like from both the digital and in-person experience. I mean, especially on the digital side, they can have that profile saved, and then I mean, I know you showed me this as a live walkthrough, which I thought was super cool, where it filters out all those menu items that wouldn't line up with your dietary preferences, and you can go directly into, and then if there is one that maybe has a good thing you can take off, it's all shown, it's all like very simply laid out there for you. And you're not having to go through a whole Da Vinci code of the menu to see exactly what I can pick and what I can't have.
Exactly. Yeah. I know some of like the current examples where people are like, yeah, we already have our, we've got this covered on our menu. And I look at the menu and it's like, it can start to be dizzying to,
Yeah,
and the hard part is those restaurants are actually putting effort in and they try to put effort in, but it's just, you can't do it that way, right? In terms
yeah,
of
Yeah.
creating too many tags where you start to get and so some operators just are like, it's too much and they don't add it. But what the hard part is understanding, quite honestly, the cost right now of how much time is being spent by your wait staff, and also just the risk of a mistake, right? When we talk to customers, one of the scariest is everyone, especially moms of kids with food allergies, when they tell us that the fear they have when they're sitting at a table or when they get to the register and they ask a question and they're like, I just want to make sure, my son's allergic to nuts, just want to make sure. And the wait staff, you could see in their eyes if they actually, because this is a major issue again for the industry is keeping
Yeah.
wait staff. Staffing is more difficult than ever. And so, to have that staff also be experts at every single ingredient with every single dish, like to me, and that's obviously why I'm passionate about this is to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
it needs to be digital. This cannot
Yeah.
be word of mouth. It's genuinely unsafe.
Yeah. I mean, especially if, some of that wait staff, they're maybe just working their part-time on evenings, or maybe it's one of many restaurants they're working at, or it's a summer job for them, right? So they're maybe not bought in to understand that. And I think I want to go back to your point of that kind of best of breed approach, right? Where, especially for something like this, where you can't really half-ass it, you can't have one foot in, one foot out because of the implications of what happens if you do it wrong, right?
Right.
Like, you serve someone the wrong thing and they're allergic, that's potentially life or death. So it's not something you can just like, oh, maybe I'll do half of it and not, because of all the different variants of it too, right? And you have to continuously update that, and especially places I'm sure that are changing their menu often have to stay on top of that too. So how does that work with you when they're changing the menu? You work with them as the menu changes to keep that updated.
Exactly. And we're integrating with all existing tech providers. So that's one big thing from just being in this industry a long time I've seen is I think that it's really important to ensure that as partners to restaurants and hospitality, we are sharing data, because obviously there's the feel good part about what we're doing in terms of we're truly helping them and helping to create a safer and more inclusive dining experience, but we're also capturing really valuable data here. And
Yeah.
so we'll integrate right at the point of when you're placing an order. And so we'll integrate with online ordering companies, as well as when you're in venue, a QR on the menu. But for the data side of it, every time someone fills out that dietary profile, it's captured probably, I would argue, and obviously a little bit biased, but you guys are a data company too. So, and then obviously we could chat, but we're working through this together. But capturing that customer dietary profile data, we talk a lot about creating a personalized experience, and there's new companies out there that are these customer profile or customer data profile companies. What better information can you possibly get than that customer telling you what their needs and preferences are when they're dining? And so there's a lot of value, we think, in capturing that to help the restaurant as well as their tech partners to be able to understand their customers more, as well as the larger trends that we're seeing around the industry.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great kind of segue to what I was going to bring up around, this whole concept of customer attraction, customer retention, right? We're hearing that from all the brands, big and small, because that's really the name of the game now, because it's becoming so competitive in that space too. And, the bigger players can, of course, afford to do all this big splash marketing, but really where the other players win is when it comes to very personalized marketing. And how do you do that? You know, and to your point now, adding, it's one thing to know what item or set of items you like, right? Like me, I'm a chocolate chip cookie guy, or I'm a brownie guy, I'm a sweets guy. Cool. Everyone knows that. And well, if you don't, now you do. But again, if you market to me like a brownie with like raisins in it, fruit for me, fruit and sweets don't mix, right? But I know other people that love it. So, but to your point, but what if I'm also allergic? What if it's a peanut butter cookie? And it's like, well, I'm allergic to peanut butter, and you've completely speed now, speed now, speed now. Data into marketing, I think, makes brands way more powerful, but also just to that point of inclusivity, it makes that person feel like, hey, this brand really cares about what I'm going through.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as two people talking about dietary needs who don't have them, I'll give you an example from, so again, we have people close to us who do. My co-founder, celiac, when we go out to lunch, like we work here local in Santa Monica, we go to, and luckily we work with them, they're our partner here, Sweetfin. We go to them like twice a week at least. I'm so sick of them, but I mean, I love it. However, it's because he knows he can eat there. It's a go-to that he knows he can dine safely at, that he knows there's options on the menu, and there is no cohort of customers that are more loyal than customers
Yes.
who have allergies or dietary needs that know that you have an option for them.
Yeah.
And that's not just, obviously he's one example of someone I spend my time with each day, but it's countless,
Yeah.
examples. My brother growing up has many different allergies also. And I used to be that person who was like annoyed, right? I'd be like, oh, we got to go to the same places over and over again.
Yeah.
But now I've got a lot more empathy, which is like, one, kudos to the places who do make an effort to let people know, here's options. We do have options. We're listening to you and looking at the data to understand who our customers are and accommodating them. But they also see the benefit. We have a restaurant group we work with in Chicago that has an entire gluten-free section of their menu because they've now become well known for having the best gluten-free fish and chips in the city.
Mhm.
And that does a lot to attract customers
Yes.
who come. And so I think there's a lot of benefit when you really lean in on the data side to understand your customers, to be able to leverage that, to be able to drive new customers in.
Absolutely. And I just thought about this too. I grew up a lot of, and I'm guilty of this too. Not now, now that I'm in industry, but I was a very picky eater growing up,
Mm.
like super picky. And I have friends to this day that are super picky. And I think this for them too is the same thing, right? Like, okay, maybe I don't like onions, or I don't like this, or I don't like that. And then it also, outside of some of the health, people that need it from a health perspective, but other people are just so picky where they want to
Yep.
just be like, listen, I like my burger with nothing on it, and I just want to make sure like that's the case. And rather than having it where, they're removing the toppings, they can just kind of eliminate parts of the menu and say, hey, listen, this is the simple things that I like, and let's just go.
Exactly. We have the option to search by ingredient. And so there's a lot of that, right? We have some people who are just like, I will not touch anything that has onions in it. I'm
Yeah.
repulsed by onions. And so it's not an allergy, it's a preference, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of reasons why people need to know or want and need to know, right? I think the other example, there's the just general picky eaters and people who don't want to eat certain foods, but there's also the food is medicine movement is a really big one, in terms of, again, like chronic disease and how do we really help create a healthier society. We need to stop eating so much, just manufactured food, and the more fresh
Yes.
and real ingredients we can have. But people want and to know what's in that food. And right now, it's unfortunately in the US, not something that we disclose, through a regulatory way. And so really that's another added benefit of what we're trying to help with, which is the more we can help create ingredient transparency, the more
Yeah.
we can help when people are trying to understand their, microbiome and understanding what foods are good or bad for them. We make it easy for them to then translate that information to when they're dining out and can make those same healthy choices that they do at home when they're out at restaurants.
Yeah, and couldn't agree more. I think there's been such a big focus on gut health, right? I mean, I've been down many rabbit
Oh, yeah.
holes, podcast rabbit holes, where I'm like, you think you're eating well and you wake up feeling sluggish, and it all goes back to your gut, right? And trying to
Yep.
watch what you eat. And I think um, it's a requirement now to show the calories on menus as well, right? Like that's a newer thing. So I think that whole push for more transparency around what you're eating is becoming more prevalent as well.
Yep, yep. And so that's more on the, once you reach a certain number of locations, you legally have to have
Oh, is
nutrition
that what it?
information
Okay,
available.
right,
But it doesn't necessarily need to be, it's all different depending on the number of locations as far as if you need it to be displayed. Um,
right,
but
right.
yeah, no, to
But
your point, yeah, go ahead.
no, no, no. I was just going to say it's almost coming full circle now with people that are, becoming more using data for fitness, right? You have Apple Watches and you have all these different apps that can track your food and your calorie counting, right? A lot of people doing that stuff and intermittent fasting, which is what I do. But now tying into this, it's like it's not a guessing game, because I mean, there's times where I try to do that stuff. And then when I'm traveling on the road, I'm like, I'm on the road, like, or, I'm not going to my usual spots. I'm not eating at home. So like, screw it. Like, I'm not going to do it. But you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to throw away your routine because you're not in your usual places that the things where you're not cooking from home. I think that's the cool thing about data. And what you're really trying to solve here is to give people that level of transparency, regardless of where they are even if they're not at a place they're going to every single week.
Exactly. No, you're spot on. I mean, and it's a growing trend, right? We were in Chicago earlier this year at there's the Future of Food conference, and a lot of kind of future concepts were featured. Relish Works, which is like the innovation arm of
Yep.
Gordon's Food, putting
Yep.
on their exhibit of Future of Food. And one of the examples they did, which we were flattered by, they had a restaurant concept that essentially was I forget the name of it, like Nutrition X or something, which essentially had like one of those patches that are now out there, which to your point, there's a lot of consumer tech about understanding your microbiome or understanding your body more and what's good and bad for it. And then once you get that data, it's what do you do with it? And so then they had, okay, then you use Foodini when you're dining out to understand what you can and cannot have so that you can not only work on your health at home, but also when you're on the road and dining out. And we've seen, to your point, gut health is a big one. Low FODMAP diet is one of the most popular growing diets that we've seen being
Mm.
saved. So there's we have a whole section for what FODMAPs do you avoid. And then to your point, keto, right, is another one in
Yeah.
terms of a lot of popularity that is just it should be easier to follow the same sort of health and nutrition goals when you're dining out as well. So that's another
Yes.
goal.
Yeah. And especially because I mean, the convenient way always is to go get fast food, right? Hey, it's easy, it's there. The
Mhm.
ingredients are pretty basic, you know what's in it, but it's bringing that you want people to feel that same way regardless what restaurant they go to. And I mean, it's no secret that a lot of the food in North America is very processed and there's
Yeah.
preservatives and all these things. And I spent a few weeks in Italy this summer, and a lot of their stuff is farm to table where you can have a plate of pasta multiple times a day and still feel great the next day. You don't feel bloated versus like I had in Dallas and I had a plate of pasta and I think I'm still full 2 weeks later from that plate of pasta. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
very different, right?
yeah, what's funny though is some people say to us like, well, this isn't a problem in America. This is, you go to Europe and people don't have any allergies. But actually, another fun fact, Italy is like the number 3 in the world for celiac disease. And they
Interesting.
do a
Okay.
better job than anyone. And they're the land of pasta, right? You've got I had
Yeah.
a customer tell me the other day that the Italian restaurant in their town told them, if you want to eat gluten-free pasta, go somewhere else because we're a real Italian restaurant. You know
Mm,
what? When you go to Italy, there are way more options for you for gluten-free options because again, it's data.
right. Right.
Understand and know that this is a common disease. It is not a choice. These people are born with a disease that prevents them from being able to
Yeah.
metabolize a certain type of food. And so, yeah, it's actually they do a great job in Italy. So
Yeah, I remember growing up. I think it was a friend of a friend or a friend's cousin, and he was allergic to all dairy. And it was the first person I met like that, and I was shocked. I was like, what does that mean? Like, no, and you're young, right? So I'm in chocolate milk, and I'm having cheese, and I'm having this, and it was
exactly.
just, I remember going to restaurants and like they'd have to like this was like years ago, right? So finding the waiter waitress, and they'd almost have to bring the chef to talk about it, right? Like, hey, what can we have on this menu? And it was very, very limited, right? So I can only imagine for someone like that, like this would be like life changing for them. Like, holy crap! Like, because I also feel, maybe there, and I mean, we're both in the same boat, we're eating everything, but I also feel like there's maybe a sense of like reservation, or maybe people feel a little bit nervous to talk about it out loud. Like, hey, I don't want to be too loud, so I'll just order something simple. I've sensed that too for some people I've been around where they're in a big group and everyone's like, hey, we're going to order a bunch of stuff. And no one wants to put their hand and say, well, I don't want to eat this, right? So then I
Yeah.
see them picking at the food and then they'll end up going getting food somewhere else after. So that, again, talking about inclusivity, like I can only imagine how some people feel about that, especially back in the day, let alone, I mean, now it's probably a little bit more open, but back in the day, I can only imagine how many people just kind of bit their tongue and say, hey, I'm not going to say anything.
And still to this day, right? Another,
Yeah.
the good and bad of what we're building is it can be applied beyond just restaurants, anywhere food is served. And so one place that's been pulling us a lot is schools, universities. A lot of universities, these students come in what we heard from dietitians from universities, which blows my mind, is many times they can collect, and in the beginning of the school year, they'll ask, do you have any allergies, dietary needs, as part of student onboarding. But because of HIPAA, they don't communicate that information to the dietitians and the chefs. And so these students who are, 18 years old, fresh out of high school, out of their homes for the first times, having to, especially kids with allergies, right? Your parents typically are putting so much effort into making sure that you're safe. You have your EpiPen with you at all the time. Then their kids go to school and they're on their own. And now they have to go up to the office of the dietitian to tell them, I need this special menu, or I've got to go sit at this purple table away from my friends who I'm trying to meet. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
bad. It is really bad. So yeah, no, it's a huge point, which is, it's similar to online ordering in the beginning days, right? Which is like, people don't want to have to call to place an order. People want an opportunity where they can use the latest in technology to be
yes,
able to get an informed data to make a decision. And that's how I kind of view where we're at today, which is, why are we using word of mouth to communicate about this? Why are we making people have to your point, be the person at the table that has to say, actually, guys, could we also get this? And they feel bad, or they're eating at home by themselves after because they were embarrassed to
yeah,
speak up.
yeah,
When it comes to just like putting the information in their hands and letting people make their own decisions, and, especially the younger generation, I really do think that, it's risky also, right? And you
sure.
hear I think it's some stat is like 1 in every 10 seconds we send someone to the hospital right now because of food allergy. And it's like, it's costing the US billions a year. And a lot of this can be fixed if we just get this information out
Yeah.
there and let people make their own informed decisions.
Yeah. No, that's it's awesome what y'all are doing. You may have mentioned this, but just want to give myself also, but for the audience, like, what is the ultimate vision you have with Foodini? Whatever timeline that is, but what do you see as that like utopia moment?
Yeah. So we really view that Foodini will power dietary needs solutions across the whole food ecosystem. And so that's whether you are ordering food online, whether you are booking a table to reserve, whether you're on an airplane, whether you're at a stadium and you're looking for
Mhm.
food, whether you're at school, when you are, at the hospital, wherever it is on, that you are looking to order food. We view it as, this is the filter, the lens. You save your dietary profile, and that allows you to then view exactly what you can and cannot have on the menu wherever food is served.
Nice. I love that. I mean, and I think, it's a true problem that needs solving. And again, the amount of people across the world, not only in North America, that need this is, again, we all know at least 10 people we can count, right? So that shows you how prevalent of a subject this is. So, Erica, you shared some really, really cool stuff. And typically how we wrap the show is with a quick lightning round. So I'm just gonna ask you a bunch of questions, and first thing that comes to mind, let's hear it. So, what's your current favorite cocktail of choice?
Oh, I'm a Moscow Mule girl.
Ooh, Moscow Mules. Okay, with the little the like
Oh, copper mug. Yeah.
the copper mug. Yes, I'm gonna think of the word copper. Love it. Since we've been talking about this, if you were to start your own restaurant tomorrow, what would the vibe be and what would be the name?
Oh, I've been in this industry a long time, so I've had a lot of time to think about this one. So my concept would be, it's called dips. And basically, you've got one side of the menu, which is all finger foods. So some healthy
Okay.
things. We've got some crudité, but we've got a lot of, fried foods, all chips, dips, or sorry, all like finger foods that you can then dip. The right side of the menu, dips.
Ah,
So we've got
okay.
all different, unique, seasonal, your go-tos, but essentially, and then a huge cocktail menu, because I
Yeah.
understand that operate at, good margins here. So
Yes.
it's I just think it's a fun concept, perfect for happy hour. Obviously, maybe not the best for full service meals, but I've always wanted that when going out with friends after work. I feel like it'd be a fun
Yeah.
concept.
It sounds like you've thought about this one. You had that one ready to go. That's
Yeah.
nice, nice.
One day.
Yeah, one day. What is your favorite? I mean, you've traveled quite a bit. What is your favorite food city? And you live in LA, but which is, I know that's a good one, but what is your
Hey, you
favorite
know
food
what?
city?
I'm gonna give you one you've never heard before. I promise you
Okay.
that. So when I was at Slice, we had offices in Macedonia, which is in the Balkans. Many people
I
have,
have a friend that's Macedonian. So
really? Okay,
yes.
there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I had never been, of course, before that, but in our city that our office was in, a town called Ohrid and Dibur in the south of Macedonia, they have this, their cuisine is essentially like some meats and then veggies and this shopska salad.
Mm.
It's just like everything is so, it's from the farms next to you, you know, everything is grown locally, quite honestly, because they don't have any other option. But it's tomato, it's cucumber, and then it's just covered with this cheese, this like local fresh cheese. And yeah, the cuisine there is just, I miss it all the time. Really, really good food.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're making me hungry. I mean, I love food in that part of the world is unbelievable. It's yeah, it's very unique, but again, very fresh, right? It's like refreshing when you eat it. Which again, we don't a lot of good places here, but this I don't know, something about eating food there. We're just very much farm to table where you feel good about eating it.
Mhm.
What is your favorite restaurant in LA?
Hmm. I probably Jelena, in Venice. It's just, and I am a farm to table. Just I love the local fresh produce, and I think they're creative with it and small dishes. But it's good at any time of day, kind of thing. Great for lunch, great for dinner, great for groups. So my kind of restaurant.
Nice. Love it. Well, Eric, I can't thank you enough for jumping on. I learned a lot on this show, which is great. And then I think what y'all are doing there at Foodini is it's unbelievable. So I'm excited to follow along the journey to partner with y'all and see what we can do. But essentially getting to that vision of creating inclusivity in a world that we interact with every day, which is food. And to your point, I think it is just going to grow more and more this prevalence of having to have be able to cater different dietary preferences or restrictions in food. And again, data is a big equalizer, and that's what you're using to help make life a better place for a lot of people. So thank you for everything you do. I'm going to kind of recap some of the cool stuff you talked about because I think you brought up, I mean, everything you brought up was really cool, but some of the things that really stuck with me, is that one-third of the population has some sort of dietary restriction, but half the population put that just has preferences. So you think of 1 in 2 people, which is crazy. That's a huge market of people that need help with this stuff. And a lot of restaurants, they haven't set up their menus, or they just haven't set up the infrastructure in a way that can accommodate it. They want to, of course, but it's just a lot of resources and time to do it. But that's where you come in to really help make it easier for them, but also for the consumer, where they can have, again, speaking to the way we all work with today, digital, so having a digital profile that covers all of that, which I think is great. And using your dietary team and the use of AI to then come up with like verification on what parts of the menu that people can look at and filtering that stuff out, I think is great. And I think, going to kind of like the whole data component and how you engage with your guests, it just takes potentially marketing to a whole nother level, right? So you can now open up your marketing, be way more personalized with their marketing, and again, giving everybody that inclusive experience. So, any last thoughts, anything that I missed in my recap, but any last thoughts you want to share before we sign off here?
I think you covered it. Those are, yeah, definitely some of the bigger points. But yeah, I think that the big point, especially I know you and I both restaurant tech and a lot of your audience as well. I think the big thing is just making sure we all work together, right? I think you guys do a great job of it there as far as really helping the industry capture data and bringing that together. And obviously that's what this podcast is about. And I think the more we can really leverage that data to help improve the industry, the better off we all be. So thank you for doing what you do.
Love it. Love it. No, I appreciate it. And if folks want to get a hold of you, Erica, to chat, whether it's a restaurant wanting to understand more about what you do, or another tech provider, or just anyone in the industry that's, hey, like, this is cool, let's chat more, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, Erica Anderman, our website, getfoodini.com, or you can email me, Erica, ERICA, at getfoodini.com.
Awesome. Which we'll share all those details in the podcast. So thank you for tuning in. This is another episode of Data Delicacies. Again, Eric Anderman from Foodini shared some awesome stuff here. Please make sure to keep track of their journey. They're going to do a lot of really cool things. And in the meantime, if you want to reach out to me, Arun at Incentivio.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Our episodes drop every Wednesday. So until next time, peace. Thanks, Erica.
Thank you.